A blind date went wrong, until the paralyzed millionaire CEO smiled and whispered, "Thank you." Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Asterisk, asterisk. Where are you watching from? Asterisk, asterisk. Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's story, where a blind date goes terribly wrong, and a simple act of kindness leads to a life-changing revelation. The cool night air hit Emma's face as she rushed out of the bistro, her heart still pounding in her chest. She felt the weight of the mistake, the embarrassment that she had somehow made a fool of herself in front of a complete stranger. She hadn't even realized until it was too late that she'd sat at the wrong table. "What a mess," she whispered to herself, shaking her head. She could hear the laughter and the chatter from inside the restaurant, but she was outside now, and it felt like the world was closing in. She wanted to disappear, to rewind time and go back to the moment when she hadn't made that awful mistake. As Emma and Liam walked toward the nearby coffee shop, the cool night air was a welcome change after the heated tension she had felt earlier. Despite the awkwardness of their first meeting, something about Liam's presence made her feel at ease. She couldn't quite put her finger on it, but she was beginning to realize that maybe this wasn't just a mistake after all. Maybe this was something else, something unexpected, that could change her life in ways she didn't even know yet. They reached the small coffee shop, the warm light spilling out into the dark street, casting a golden glow on the sidewalk. They stepped inside, the comforting aroma of freshly brewed coffee filling the air. Liam held the door open for her, a small, chivalrous gesture that made Emma smile. They found a table in the corner, away from the few other patrons that were scattered around the shop, and sat down. For a moment, neither of them said anything. Emma fiddled with the edge of her cup, unsure of how to start the conversation. She had been nervous enough when they were at the restaurant, but now, in the quiet intimacy of the coffee shop, the nerves were creeping back in. Liam broke the silence first, his voice calm and steady. "I really am sorry about earlier," he said, his eyes meeting hers with a sincerity that made Emma's heart skip a beat. "I should have told you sooner that you were sitting at the wrong table, but honestly, I didn't want you to leave. I kind of enjoyed our conversation." Emma blinked, taken aback by his honesty. She had expected him to make excuses or brush it off, but instead, he was owning up to his part in the awkward situation. "It's okay," she replied softly, a small smile tugging at her lips. "I should have checked the table number. I've just been kind of a mess tonight, honestly. But you were really nice about it." Liam's expression softened, and he leaned back in his chair, his eyes studying her with a kind of quiet curiosity. "You know, I don't think I've ever had a conversation like that before. Most of the people I meet, they're either focused on what I do for a living or they want something from me. You didn't even know who I was, did you?" Emma blinked, surprised by his words. "Honestly, no. I had no idea," she admitted, feeling a little embarrassed. "I thought you were just another guy at a blind date. I didn't even know you were a millionaire." Liam chuckled softly, the sound warm and genuine. "Yeah, most people are surprised when they find out. It's kind of why I don't like talking about it. People start acting differently, you know." Emma nodded, understanding more than she expected to. She had seen it before, people treating others differently because of their wealth or status. It wasn't something she cared about, but she knew that for someone like Liam, it must be exhausting. "I get that," she said, her voice quiet. "I work at a diner, and people treat me like I'm invisible sometimes. It's like they don't even see me, just the job I do. So I get why you don't like it." There was a brief silence, as they both let the words settle in the air between them. Then, Liam leaned forward, his gaze softening as he looked at her. "You're different," he said quietly. "I can tell you're not like the others, and I really admire that." Emma felt a warmth spread through her chest at his words, but also a sense of unease. "I don't know why, but I trust you," she said, almost without thinking. "I know that probably sounds crazy, but I do." Liam smiled, a hint of relief in his eyes. "It doesn't sound crazy," he said. "I trust you too." Emma shifted in her seat, trying to process what was happening. This wasn't how she had imagined her evening going. She had expected a boring date, a quick escape, maybe a funny story to tell her friends. But instead, she was sitting across from a man she barely knew, talking about things that felt real, things that mattered. "So," Liam said, his voice breaking through her thoughts, What do you really want, Emma? What's your dream? Emma hesitated, her gaze dropping to her coffee cup. She hadn't talked about her dreams in a long time, not to anyone who cared enough to listen. I've always wanted to open my own art studio, she said quietly, her fingers tracing the rim of the cup. But I don't know. It feels impossible sometimes. I don't have the money, and I barely have enough time to even paint anymore. Liam's expression softened, his eyes studying her with a deep empathy. You know, I think you could do it, he said, his voice low but firm. You've got the passion. That's the hardest part. Everything else can be figured out. Emma looked up at him, her heart fluttering. She had no idea why he was saying these things, but for the first time in a long time, she felt a spark of hope. Maybe things weren't as impossible as she thought. Maybe this was the beginning of something new. Something she hadn't expected. You really think so? She asked, a small smile playing at her lips. Liam nodded. I do. And just like that, something inside Emma shifted. She didn't know where this was going, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was on the right path. The days that followed felt like a strange dream to Emma. Each time she thought about Liam, her heart would flutter. She couldn't help but replay their conversation over and over in her mind, his honesty, his sincerity, the way he listened to her like she mattered. It had been a long time since anyone had made her feel that way. She wasn't sure what it all meant, but she knew one thing for sure. She was no longer the same person who had walked into that restaurant a few days ago. Emma's life hadn't suddenly become perfect. She was still working long shifts at the diner, struggling to make ends meet, but now there was a spark of possibility in her that hadn't been there before. Liam's words kept echoing in her head. Asterisk, you've got the passion. That's the hardest part. Everything else can be figured out. Asterisk. It felt like a lifeline, something to hold on to, something to strive for. The following weekend, she found herself back at the little park near her apartment, sketchbook in hand, as usual. It had become a routine for her, to spend a few quiet hours there on Saturdays just drawing and dreaming. The world seemed quieter there, the rustling leaves and soft sounds of the city providing a much-needed escape from the chaos of her life. As she sat on a bench, sketching the flowers that grew wild at the edge of the park, she felt a sense of peace that she hadn't experienced in a long time. The noise of the world faded away, and for a few precious moments, it was just her and her art. She paused for a moment, studying the page, her mind racing with ideas. She didn't know how she would make it all happen, open a studio, pursue her art full-time, but for the first time, she could see a path forward. Asterisk, maybe it wasn't impossible. Asterisk, she thought. Asterisk, maybe it wasn't too late. Asterisk. Just as she was lost in her thoughts, a voice interrupted her, pulling her back to the present. Hey, Emma. She looked up, startled, and found Liam standing there, a warm smile on his face. He was dressed casually, in a jacket and jeans, his usual polished look replaced by something more relaxed. I didn't expect to find you here, he said, glancing down at the sketchbook in her lap. Emma smiled, a little embarrassed. I come here sometimes just to sketch. It's peaceful. Liam nodded, looking genuinely interested. You're really good, you know. I've seen your work before. Emma's face flushed at the compliment. Thanks, she said, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. It's nothing much, just some sketches. It's more than just sketches, Liam said, sitting down beside her. You've got real talent. You should be showing your work to more people. Emma felt a rush of warmth at his words, but also a little self-doubt. I don't know, she replied softly. I've never really felt like it was good enough. Plus, it's just a dream. Liam leaned forward slightly, his expression serious. I'm serious, Emma. You're way more talented than you give yourself credit for. I know this might sound crazy, but I've got an idea. I want to help you. Emma blinked, surprised by his sudden shift in tone. Help me? What do you mean? I've been thinking about it for a while, Liam said, looking out over the park as if gathering his thoughts. You told me you wanted to open an art studio, right? Well, I can help you with that. Emma shook her head, unsure if she had heard him correctly. You want to help me open a studio? She asked, her voice trembling slightly. Liam nodded. I know people. I can help you get the space, the funding, the resources. If you really want to do this, Emma, I can make it happen. I want to help you bring your dream to life. Emma was speechless. She had dreamed of having a studio for so long, but the thought of actually making it happen felt impossible. It was one thing to imagine it, but it was another to have someone offer to make it real. Why would you do that for me? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam turned to face her, his eyes earnest. Because I believe in you, Emma, he said simply. I've seen the way you care about your art. You're not just doing it for the fame or money. You're doing it because it means something to you. That's why I want to help. Emma felt a lump form in her throat as she looked at him, her mind reeling. She had no idea what to say, or how to even process what was happening. She had never imagined that something like this could be possible for her. I don't know what to say, she finally managed, her voice shaky. This is crazy, but thank you. I don't even know how to thank you enough. Liam smiled, his expression softening. You don't have to thank me. Just promise me you'll try. Promise me you'll go after what you really want. Emma nodded, the weight of the promise settling on her shoulders. This was real. She could do this. She didn't know where it would lead, or what challenges would come her way. But for the first time in her life, she truly believed that her dream wasn't out of reach. It was right there, just waiting for her to take that first step. The next few weeks were a whirlwind for Emma. She had always dreamed of opening an art studio, but never in her wildest dreams did she think it could actually happen. Liam's offer to help her was like a lifeline thrown her way, and every time she thought about it, her heart raced with excitement and fear. She had started looking at spaces around the city, exploring options, meeting with real estate agents. With Liam's help, the overwhelming task of securing funding and a place to work no longer seemed impossible. He didn't just offer his financial support. He became her sounding board, always there with encouragement, advice, and a belief in her talent that she had never felt from anyone before. Emma couldn't believe how quickly things were moving, but there were moments when doubt crept in. She was just a waitress from a small diner. What made her think she could run an art studio, let alone one that people would actually want to visit? There were days when she questioned if she was even good enough to be a professional artist, and on those days, she would find herself texting Liam. He always responded with the same reassurance. You've got this. I believe in you. His belief in her started to change the way she saw herself. One Saturday afternoon, Emma found herself sitting in a small cafe, sketching in her notebook, her mind still spinning from the meeting she'd had that morning with the landlord of a potential studio space. The cafe was quiet, the sound of the espresso machine humming in the background, and the occasional clink of silverware from a table nearby. As she focused on the strokes of her pencil, a voice interrupted her. Emma. She looked up, startled, to see Liam standing there, a familiar smile on his face. He was holding 2 coffee cups, one in each hand. Hey, I brought you some coffee, he said, placing the cups on the table. I figured you could use a break. Emma smiled, a warm feeling spreading through her chest. Thanks. I definitely needed a coffee. She reached for the cup he had placed in front of her, inhaling the rich aroma. How did it go with the space? Liam asked, taking a seat across from her. Emma sighed, her fingers curling around the cup. It's a nice place, but I'm not sure. The rent is a little higher than I was expecting, and I'm still not sure I can afford it with all the other costs. Liam leaned back in his chair, studying her for a moment. I understand, but Emma, you're never going to know if you don't take the leap. This is your dream. You've worked so hard for this. Don't let fear hold you back. Emma bit her lip, uncertainty flooding her chest. I don't want to fail. I don't want to let you down, or worse, let myself down. Liam reached across the table, placing his hand gently over hers. Emma, you won't fail. You'll face challenges, of course. But you're going to learn, grow, and build something real. You're capable of more than you think. His words resonated deep within her, and for the first time she felt a spark of belief in herself that had been missing for so long. She looked at him, seeing the unwavering confidence he had in her. She couldn't deny that it made a difference. His faith in her made her want to try harder, to push past the doubts and fears that had held her back for so long. Okay, Emma said, her voice steady. I'll do it. I'll take the space. I'll make it work. A smile spread across Liam's face, and he gave her hand a reassuring squeeze. I knew you would. As they sat there in the quiet cafe, Emma couldn't help but feel like this was the beginning of something new, something exciting. It wasn't going to be easy, but for the first time in a long time she felt like she had a real chance at making her dream come true. Liam had given her more than just financial support. He had given her the courage to believe in herself, and for that, Emma was more grateful than she could ever express. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing for sure. She wasn't alone. She had someone who believed in her, and that made all the difference. The following weeks were a blur of excitement and anxiety for Emma. She had signed the lease for the art studio and began working on transforming the space. Every day after her shifts at the diner, she would head straight to the studio, bringing her sketches, her ideas, and her hopes. There was something magical about the space despite the dust, the empty walls, and the unfinished floors. She could see it, her dream coming to life in this very place. But there were moments, quiet moments, when she would sit alone in the studio, looking around at the bare walls, that the weight of it all would hit her. She was terrified. What if no one came? What if her art wasn't good enough? What if she had made a huge mistake? Every time those doubts crept in, she would remember Liam's words. Asterisk. You're capable of more than you think. Asterisk. Those words kept her going, but it was harder than she ever imagined. There were so many small details to take care of: getting the supplies, painting the walls, designing the layout, but Emma couldn't let herself back down. Slowly the studio began to take shape, and with each step she felt a little closer to her dream. One evening, after a long day of setting up, Liam showed up unexpectedly, holding 2 cups of coffee in his hands. "I thought you could use a break," he said, his voice warm. Emma looked up from the canvas she was painting, and a smile spread across her face. "Thanks," she said, taking the cup he offered. "I'm going crazy with all these little things." "I can imagine," Liam said, sitting down across from her. "But you're doing great. I'm proud of you." Emma felt a rush of gratitude. She didn't know where she'd be without Liam's encouragement. "I don't know if I'm doing great," she admitted. "Some days it feels like it's all falling apart." Liam leaned forward, studying her with a steady gaze. "You're not giving up, are you?" "No," Emma said, shaking her head. "I'm not giving up. It's just harder than I thought it would be." Liam smiled gently. "Anything worth doing is going to be hard, but that's what makes it so rewarding. You're building something real, Emma. You should be proud of that." His words gave her the strength to keep going. She had been so focused on the fear of failing, on the doubts that threatened to overwhelm her, that she had forgotten to be proud of the progress she had made. She wasn't where she wanted to be yet, but she was closer than she had ever been. Emma stood up and walked over to a blank section of the wall. "I'm going to hang this up," she said, her voice a little shaky as she lifted the painting she had just finished. It was a piece she had poured her heart into, a collection of abstract colors that reflected her journey. "It's not perfect," she said, running her fingers over the edges. "But it's mine." Liam followed her over to the wall, watching her with a proud smile. "It's beautiful," he said softly. "You should be proud of it." She turned to face him, her heart full of emotions she couldn't fully explain. "Thank you for believing in me," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You're the reason I'm here." Liam stepped closer, his expression gentle. "You did the work, Emma. I just gave you the push you needed." Emma's eyes welled up with tears, but she smiled, a small, content smile. "I don't know where I'd be without you," she said. "You've changed everything for me." He reached out, placing a hand on her shoulder, giving her a reassuring squeeze. "I'm just glad I could help. But you did it, Emma. You've made this happen." As the weeks went by, the studio began to take shape, not just in its physical form but in Emma's heart. She was no longer the waitress who dreamed of a better life. She was an artist, a business owner, a woman who had fought through her fears and taken a leap of faith. One morning, as Emma opened the doors to her new studio for the first time, she stood there, taking in the quiet, empty space. It wasn't much yet, but it was hers. The paintings on the walls, the tables she had set up for future classes, the chairs arranged for the people who would come, everything felt like a promise to herself, a promise that she could do this, that she was enough. Later that afternoon, Liam came by to check on her. He walked into the studio, his eyes scanning the space, a proud smile spreading across his face. "I knew you could do it," he said, walking over to where Emma stood. "This is incredible." Emma smiled, her heart full. "It's not perfect, but it's mine." Liam nodded, stepping back to take in the entire room. "It's more than perfect," he said. "You've built something real here, Emma, and I have no doubt it's going to be something amazing." Emma looked around at the studio, feeling a surge of emotion. It was just the beginning, but it was everything she had dreamed of. And with Liam by her side, she knew anything was possible. The days that followed the opening of Emma's studio were filled with a sense of accomplishment and anticipation. She had poured everything she had into this dream, and now it was starting to feel real. The first few art classes were small, just a handful of people who had heard about the studio through word of mouth, or because they were curious about the new art space in town. But each class brought more hope, more belief that she had made the right choice. People began showing up, asking questions, expressing interest, and soon, Emma found herself surrounded by students, all eager to learn, to create, and to be part of something bigger. Still, despite the success of the opening and the growing number of students, Emma couldn't shake the nagging feeling of self-doubt. What if it didn't last? What if, despite everything, her dream came crashing down? One evening, after the last student left for the night, Emma sat at one of the empty tables in her studio, staring at the paintings on the wall. She had made it this far, but it wasn't enough. She wanted more, and she didn't know how to get there. She felt a sudden weight pressing down on her chest, a sense of loneliness creeping in as the studio stood silent and still around her. Just then, her phone buzzed, breaking the silence. It was a message from Liam, asterisk. Hey, how's everything going at the studio? I know it's been a lot lately. Don't forget to take a break and breathe. You're doing amazing, Emma, asterisk. She smiled as she read the message, her chest tightening with gratitude. Liam's support had meant more to her than she could ever say. He had been there from the very beginning, offering advice, reassurance, and encouragement. But more than anything, he had believed in her when she hadn't believed in herself. She took a deep breath and replied, asterisk. It's going well, but it feels like there's still so much to do. Some days, I wonder if I'm doing it right. Almost instantly, Liam's reply popped up. You are. Every day, you're doing it right. I know it doesn't always feel like it, but trust me, you're on the right path. Don't lose sight of that. Asterisk Emma read the message again, feeling a warmth spread through her. She hadn't realized how much she needed to hear those words, but in that moment, they filled the gap she hadn't known existed. She sat back in her chair, taking a moment to let the message sink in. She wasn't alone in this journey. She had Liam, and she had her students, her dream, and most importantly, herself. With renewed determination, she stood up and walked over to one of the blank canvases at the back of the room. It was time to get back to work. She couldn't afford to let fear hold her back. Over the next few weeks, Emma's studio continued to grow. The word spread, and more people began signing up for classes. Each day brought new faces, new challenges, and new opportunities. And with each challenge, Emma found herself more confident, more capable of handling whatever came her way. One evening, after the studio had closed for the night, Emma stood in front of a large canvas, her brush moving steadily across it. She had poured all of her emotions into this piece, the doubt, the fear, the triumph, and the hope. It was a reflection of her journey, a journey she had once thought impossible, but now, with every stroke, it was becoming a reality. The door to the studio opened with a soft creak, and Emma turned around, surprised to see Liam standing in the doorway, holding a small bouquet of flowers. I thought I'd drop by and see how you're doing, he said with a warm smile, walking over to her. You've been working so hard, and I wanted to bring you something to remind you to take a break. Emma smiled, touched by his gesture. You didn't have to do that. I wanted to, he replied, handing her the flowers. You've done an incredible job, Emma. You've built something real, something beautiful, and I'm proud of you. Emma felt a wave of emotion rush over her as she looked at Liam. The support he had given her over the past few months had been unwavering, and now, standing here with him, she realized just how much she had come to rely on his belief in her. Thank you, she said, her voice a little shaky. I couldn't have done it without you. Liam smiled gently, his eyes filled with affection. You've done it all yourself, Emma. I'm just glad I could be a part of it. As they stood together in the quiet studio, the city lights twinkling in the distance through the windows, Emma realized something. This wasn't just about the studio. It was about the journey, the growth, and the people who had helped her along the way. She wasn't just building an art studio. She was building a future for herself, a future she had once thought was out of reach. And with Liam by her side, she knew she could face whatever came next. She wasn't alone anymore. She had everything she needed to succeed. As the weeks passed, Emma's studio continued to grow in ways she had never expected. The classes were filling up, the artwork was being displayed, and the energy in the space was alive with creativity. She had worked so hard to get here, but now, it was all starting to pay off. Yet, as the business flourished, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more she needed to understand about herself and her future. She had come so far, but the doubts, the insecurities, still lingered in the back of her mind. She had always dreamed of running a successful studio, but now that it was happening, she couldn't help but wonder, what comes next? Was she really ready to take the next step, whatever that was? One evening, after the last class of the day, Emma found herself standing in front of the large window that overlooked the city. The soft glow of the setting sun painted the buildings in hues of orange and pink, and for a moment, she just stood there, lost in the view. It felt like everything had changed so quickly: her life, her dreams, her sense of self. She had been living in a whirlwind of activity, but now, in the stillness of the studio, she had the time to really think about what all of this meant. The sound of the door opening interrupted her thoughts, and she turned to see Liam walking into the studio, a slight smile on his face. "Hey, I thought I'd drop by," he said, walking over to her. "I wanted to see how things were going." Emma smiled, a sense of warmth spreading through her. "It's going great," she said. "Better than I ever imagined, actually." Liam nodded, his expression thoughtful. "I'm glad to hear that," he said. "But I can tell something's on your mind. You don't seem as happy as you should be." Emma looked down at the floor for a moment, unsure how to explain what she was feeling. "I don't know, Liam," she said finally. "I've built this studio and it's everything I've wanted, but I feel like there's something missing. Like I'm not sure what to do next." Liam's eyes softened and he stepped closer to her. "It's okay to feel that way," he said gently. "You've achieved so much, Emma. But that doesn't mean you have to have it all figured out right now. This is just the beginning of your journey." Emma looked up at him, her heart swelling with gratitude. "I know," she said, her voice a little shaky. "It's just hard sometimes. I've been so focused on making everything work that I forgot to ask myself what I really want." Liam placed a hand on her shoulder, offering her a reassuring smile. "You've been doing this all on your own, but you don't have to have all the answers right now," he said. "The beauty of life is that it's always evolving, and you're allowed to change direction. It's okay to not know what comes next." Emma let out a deep breath, feeling a sense of relief wash over her. For the first time in a long while, she felt like she didn't have to have everything figured out. Maybe it was okay to take things one step at a time. "You're right," she said, her voice gaining strength. "I've been so focused on the future, on getting everything perfect, that I forgot to enjoy the present. I've got a lot to be proud of, and I'm not alone in this anymore." Liam smiled, his eyes warm. "Exactly," he said, "and no matter what happens, I'm here. I've got your back, Emma. You've already built something incredible, and the rest will fall into place when it's meant to." Emma's heart fluttered as she looked at him, realizing just how much his support had meant to her. "Thank you," she said softly, "for everything. For believing in me when I couldn't believe in myself." Liam chuckled lightly. "You didn't need me to believe in you. You've always had it in you. I just helped you see it." Emma smiled, feeling a sense of peace settle in her chest. She didn't have all the answers, but for the first time, she realized that was okay. The studio, her dream, had become more than just a place to create it, had become a symbol of her own growth, of the woman she had become through all the challenges and triumphs. And with Liam by her side, she knew she could continue to build, to grow, and to find new paths she hadn't yet imagined. As the sun set behind the city, Emma felt a quiet confidence growing within her. The future was uncertain, but for the first time she wasn't afraid of it. She was ready for whatever came next. As the months passed, Emma's art studio became a well-known place in the community. It was more than just a space. To learn, it became a sanctuary for creativity, a place where people could come together to express themselves. Emma had created something truly special, and the satisfaction of seeing it grow made all the hard work worth it. She was no longer the uncertain woman who had doubted herself. She had transformed into a confident business owner, an artist, and a leader. But even as her success grew, Emma found herself still thinking about what was next. The studio was thriving, her students were flourishing, and for the first time, she felt like she was truly living her dream. But there was a part of her that kept wondering if there was more she could do, if there were new ways she could push herself to grow even further. One morning, after opening the studio for the day, Emma sat at the front desk, staring at the calendar. She had started to plan for a new art exhibition, something that would showcase not only her own work but the work of her students as well. It was a big step and opportunity to push herself further, to expand the studio's reach and create something even more meaningful. But as she thought about it, she realized she had never actually taken the time to truly think about what she wanted in her personal life. For so long, she had been focused on her career, on building the studio, that she had neglected her own heart. Liam had been there for her every step of the way, supporting her through every challenge and celebrating every victory. She couldn't imagine her life without him, but she still hadn't fully processed what he meant to her. Was it just gratitude, or was there something more? Her thoughts were interrupted when she heard the familiar sound of the door opening. She looked up to see Liam walking in, his usual warm smile on his face. "Hey," he said, walking over to her. "How's everything going?" Emma smiled, feeling her heart skip a beat. "It's going great. I've been thinking about the exhibition, and I think it's time to take the next step." Liam's eyes lit up with excitement. "That's amazing. You've built something incredible here, Emma. I know this exhibition will be another success." Emma paused for a moment, then looked at him, her heart suddenly racing. "Liam, there's something I've been thinking about," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I know we've been working together, and you've been such an important part of this journey, but I need to ask you something." Liam raised an eyebrow, his expression curious but gentle. "Of course, anything," he said, sitting down next to her. Emma took a deep breath, feeling a wave of vulnerability wash over her. "I've spent so much time focusing on this studio, on my work, but I haven't really stopped to think about what I truly want. I know you've always believed in me, but I don't know if I've ever truly taken the time to understand what you mean to me. And now, I realize I don't want to go another day without knowing for sure." She looked into Liam's eyes, her breath catching in her chest. "Liam, I think I've fallen in love with you, and I don't want to wait any longer to tell you that." For a moment, there was silence between them, and Emma held her breath, waiting for his response. She had expected her confession to feel like a weight being lifted, but instead, it felt like an entirely new world had opened up before her. Liam's eyes softened and he reached out, taking her hand in his. "Emma," he said softly, "I've been in love with you for a long time. I was just waiting for you to realize it too." Emma felt a rush of emotion surge through her as she looked at him, overwhelmed by the realization that the person who had supported her every step of the way was now the person who would walk beside her for the rest of her life. In that moment, everything fell into place. It wasn't just about the studio, or the success, or even the exhibition. It was about the love that had quietly grown between them, the unspoken bond that had developed over time. "So, what now?" Emma asked, a smile breaking through her uncertainty. Liam smiled back, his eyes sparkling with warmth. "Now, we build our future. Together." And just like that, Emma knew that the path ahead was no longer unclear. It wasn't just about building a business or chasing a dream. It was about building a life with the person who had believed in her from the very beginning. With Liam by her side, there was nothing she couldn't face, no challenge too great. Together, they had created something beautiful, and together, they would continue to grow, to love, and to build the future they both deserved.